We're now on use number 8 for these Cubitron 775L sticky back film sanding discs. So when I turn on the lathe and I want to turn a consistent taper, I'm just not that good. I can't get it nice and straight. So the way that I straighten it out perfectly is I take those Cubitron discs and I'll stick them to a board. Then I'll use this to help me kind of get a nice straight edge. So let me show you how that works. So I'm starting with the 150. I sand for a bit. And if I had a shorter taper, I could do this one disc like this. And then I'll flip it to the other side. So now I have a really nice straight taper, better than I could do with any lathe tool. So there you have it. One more use for the Cubitron 775L stick-it film back sanding discs. Okay, moving right along to use number 9 of 3M 775L Cubitron film back stick-it discs. This use, we use it in a disc sander for the drill press or the lathe. What makes this so unique is that you can put paper on both sides, and on the top side you can use it as a grinder, you can sharpen things, and on the bottom side you can use it to dimension lumber, thin stock, things that would be difficult to do otherwise. So my first iteration, I just took a piece of plywood and I sanded it round on my disc sander, and then I just put a bolt through it and a nut on the top, and it worked reasonably well. There was a little bit of wobble when I used it. Then I ran across these mandrels. These things are used to put sanding discs in angle grinders, and this greatly reduced the wobble, and this thing runs really true. So what it looks like is this. It's just a piece of plywood that I drilled a hole in the middle that I use to sand it round, and then I get this mandrel, and it goes through this hole in the middle that's countersunk, and then I screw the mandrel on here, and then that gets chucked in the drill press. Then a piece gets put on the bottom, a full disc on the bottom. The disc on top, I have to cut a little hole in the middle, and then I can stick that on there. I would recommend that you lacquer this. That'll help the disc to come off more easily. If you want to make a really robust one of these, you make it out of a piece of this phenolic. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and chuck this up in the drill press, and I'm going to show you how it works. Okay, we're at the drill press. Got this chucked in there. I'm going to show you how I sharpen a chisel. Now, it is hard to know what the end. Now remember, this chisel is pretty beat up. There's some pretty big nicks in there. And it is pretty difficult to know to get the angle right because you're really just doing this freehand. So what helps me is I have this angle cube, and I zero it out here on the table. Then I stick it to the back of my chisel. And then when I tip this up, I can get my 25 degrees. Let me show you how that works. Almost there. See, I'm almost to the edge now. So see, now I've ground all the way to the edge. I still got a little bit of chip left, but for the most part, that chisel is ground. So you can use this to sharpen chisels. You can also use it to dimension wood. And so down below here, I have a board with a little groove in it, and that just keeps my piece of wood from going all over the place. So I set a piece of wood in here. I'll show you how I set this up. I remember I have a 120 grit disc on the bottom. I raise my table up just enough until I get a little friction. I can move my piece, just a little friction. Okay, there we go, just like that. Now, I turn the machine on, and I feed my stock in there. What happens is this is now sanding it down. This is now sanding this down very precisely. run it back one more time. So now this piece is dimensioned. Now I am sanding across the grain because that disc is kind of cutting across the grain. So you might have to clean up a few scratches. But when I mic these pieces, they're usually within a couple thousandths from one end to the other. So it's a very precise way to dimension thin stock that would be impossible to do any other way. So there you have it. 3M Cubitron 775L film back stick-it discs used as a drum sander in the a disc sander in the drill press. You can also use this in the lathe quite nicely. So you can grind chisels and you can dimension wood.